Around a month and a half ago, I made a video talking about some off-season additions that are already looking like steals, so I feel like it's only right that we now talk about some off-season additions that teams may already be regretting. Now, of course, when it comes to things like these, hindsight is always 20/20, but it's still fun to look back at previous moves once we get a little bit of a sample size. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so if there's any moves that you feel I might have missed, let me know what those moves are down below in the comments and why. If you guys end up enjoying the video, please remember to hit that like button. It definitely helps out a ton. Let's see if we can hit 1,000 likes on this video. And lastly, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. And with that all being said, let's go ahead and start the video off with the first move, and that is the Edmonton Oilers signing Connor Brown to a 1-year contract. Now, on the surface, this looks like a nothing move because it was just a 1-year deal with a cap hit this season of $775,000. However, the contract had a built-in bonus that would be given to Connor Brown if he appeared in 10 games with the Oilers. Obviously, at this point in the season he's played in 27, so he gets that $3.25 million, and that $3.25 million actually counts against the cap for the Edmonton Oilers next season. So that's going to end up being a pretty decent chunk of just dead cap space for the Edmonton Oilers next season, and of course, it would have all been worth it if Connor Brown came in and played fantastic with the Oilers, but so far that has not been the case, and we are not even halfway through the season yet, and there's still time for Connor Brown to turn things around. And I will say, these last couple of games, he seems to be getting better, but when you look at his results as a whole in the 27 games he's played, they just aren't very good. And for the most part this season, when Connor Brown has been in the lineup, again, with the exception of these last few games, he's really just been a non-factor. He's yet to score a goal. He's got just 3 assists in those 27 games. He's a -8, and it's very clear that Connor Brown is taking a lot longer than maybe the Edmonton Oilers expected him to fully recover from that knee injury. This was a signing that got a lot of Oilers fans excited. The idea of reuniting Connor Brown with Connor McDavid, those two had so much success together playing on the same Erie Otters team, and prior to the knee injury, Connor Brown had been a pretty consistent 15 to 20 goal middle six forward who's capable of playing in really all situations. But it's safe to say, up until this point, the Oilers deciding to bring Connor Brown in on a 1-year deal just hasn't worked out. And if he's not able to turn things around during the second half of the season, that $3.25 million in dead cap space is going to be a tough pill to swallow for the Oilers next season. The next move on my list is the Toronto Maple Leafs signing Ryan Reeves to a 3-year contract with an AAV of $1.35 million. This is one of those signings that isn't just bad in hindsight. Even at the time the deal was signed, it was a bit of a head scratcher, and we all knew this deal was probably going to age pretty poorly. Was it shocking that the Leafs decided to sign Ryan Reeves? No. What was shocking is the fact that they decided to give him anything more than a 1-year league min contract. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Ryan Reeves. I think he's one of the most entertaining characters in the NHL, one of the biggest personalities in the NHL, and I'm sure he's a guy who has a big positive presence behind the scenes in the locker room, and let's be real, the Leafs locker room probably needed somebody like that. But when it comes to on-ice play, Ryan Reeves is nothing more than a fourth-line enforcer. He's there to fight, he's there to protect his teammates, and he's somebody who in the past has at least been serviceable enough to stay in the lineup in that role and play limited minutes. But in Toronto, I mean, his game really just fell off of a cliff completely. He's averaging under 7.5 minutes per game when he's in the lineup. He's got just 1 goal in the 21 games he's appeared in. He's a -11, and the Leafs just get caved in when Ryan Reeves is on the ice. He served as a healthy scratch prior to going down with the injury that he's been out with over the last month or so, and you have to imagine that even when he gets back from this injury, he's probably not somebody that's going to really factor into the Maple Leafs lineup on a consistent basis. Now, $1.35 million against the cap doesn't sound like the end of the world, but for a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are always so tight to the cap, to have that kind of money tied up for this season and the next 2 seasons after this, and a guy who, again, I really don't think factors into their lineup on a consistent basis when he returns, and when he has played for them this season has been a net negative, it's really less than ideal. Again, I know he brings a lot of intangibles to the table and is probably a great presence in the locker room, but you just kind of have to wonder, could that money have been spent in a better way? Like, for an example, if you were to take Ryan Reeves' cap hit and the extension that was given to David Kampf, that right there would have been enough to re-sign Michael Bunting at the $4.5 million cap hit he signed with the Hurricanes for. Continuing on now to the next move on my list, we have the Los Angeles Kings trading for PierreLuc Dubois. Revisiting the details of the trade, the Los Angeles Kings sent forward Gabriel Valard, Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and a 2024 second-round draft pick to the Jets in exchange for Dubois. Additionally, the Los Angeles Kings would sign PierreLuc Dubois to an 8-year, $68 million million contract extension that is an annual cap hit of $8.5 million. This is a trade that at the time it happened, I was pretty skeptical about. You can go back and watch my video breaking down the deal. The Kings took a lot off of their active roster to make this trade work, and they had to make the money work, but it's not like they were just trading away draft picks and prospects. Guys like Alex Iafallo and Gabriel Valard were big-time contributors for the Los Angeles Kings, especially last season. And on top of giving up a lot in the package that the Kings sent to the Jets to acquire PierreLuc Dubois, I figured that $8.5 million for the next 8 seasons for a guy whose career high in points is 63 was a lot. And the early returns on this trade are not looking too great for the Los Angeles Kings. Now, obviously, Dubois struggling really hasn't impacted the success of the team that much. The Kings are still having a solid season, but man, Dubois has really struggled. In 33 games, he's got just 14 points. He's averaging under 16 minutes of ice time per game, which is almost a career low for PierreLuc Dubois. There was only one other season in his career where he averaged less ice time. PierreLuc Dubois has never really been a great two-way player either, so when he's not putting up points, he's not all that impactful of a player. Now, when it comes to looking back at the PierreLuc Dubois trade, it would be one thing if it was, just Dubois struggling in Los Angeles and nothing else, but when you look at how Gabriel Valard is doing in Winnipeg, it makes the trade look that much worse. In 17 games this season with the Jets, Gabriel Valard has already overtaken PierreLuc Dubois in points on the season. He's got 15. He's averaging over 17 minutes of ice time per game. He's got an expected goals for percentage of almost 60%. The Jets have been on an absolute tear ever since Valard has returned to the lineup from injury and was placed on the top line with Nick Ehlers and Mark Scheifele. Those three guys have been dynamite together. And aside from the point production, I think guys like Gabriel Valard and Alex Iafallo, who is also part of the return for Winnipeg, deserve a lot of credit for the Winnipeg Jets' much improved team defense this season. Iafallo and Valard both play a very strong 200-foot game, and that was kind of a big criticism around a lot of the Jets' top forwards over the last couple of seasons, is that they weren't really committed to playing a 200-foot game. Dubois was subject to that criticism a lot in the latter years of his time in Winnipeg. Blake Wheeler is another guy who was subject to that criticism, who was of course bought out in the offseason, and man, going from PierreLuc Dubois and Blake Wheeler to Valard and Iafallo has been a massive turnaround for the Jets. Next up on my list of offseason additions that teams may already be regretting, we have the Ottawa Senators signing goaltender Joonas Korpisalo to a 5-year, $20 million contract. Now, in the Ottawa Senators defense, they were desperate for a starting goaltender. They needed to find one. This is a team that was coming into this season with playoff aspirations, and the goaltending market in the offseason, in terms of free agents at least, was not great, and Korpisalo looked to be one of the better options. Korpisalo was coming off of a pretty strong season split between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Los Angeles Kings, but this is a guy who throughout his career has notoriously been pretty inconsistent. Up until this point in his career, he's also never started 40 or more games in a season, so he's never really carried the workload of being a true number one goaltender in a single season. So there was definitely a lot of risk committing 5 years to Korpisalo. I don't even think the $4 million cap hit was that bad, again, considering the fact that he was coming off of a pretty strong season. And if Ottawa didn't give Korpisalo this contract, it was likely that somebody was going to give it to him. That being said, early returns on this deal are not looking great for the Senators at all, as Joonas Korpisalo has been one of the worst starting goaltenders in the entire league so far this season. He's 7-12 with an .890 save percentage, a negative 8.24 goals saved above expected. For an Ottawa Senators team that has had a borderline top 10 offense in the league so far this season, goaltending has absolutely crippled them, and it just seems like these long-term contracts, unless it's to a true superstar goalie, just never seem to work out. The shorter term, cheaper deals, kind of taking a chance on a guy to be, a 1A, 1B option, always seem to age a lot better. Just look at Joey Decord in Seattle. Alex Lyons' 1-year deal's looking great in Detroit. Cam Talbot, former Ottawa Senator, he's been fantastic on a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Kings. Jonathan Quick is another one. He's been unreal for the New York Rangers on a short, cheap contract. And then you have guys who, are coming off one really strong season and signed a big deal. Just look at Jack Campbell last season and now Korpisalo this season. They just never seem to live up to the contract. And now finally, finishing out the video with the last move on my list, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets trading for Ivan Provorov. They sent a 2023 first-round draft pick and a conditional 2024 second to the Philadelphia Flyers as part of this 3-team deal. It obviously wasn't their own first-round draft pick. It was a pick that previously belonged to the Los Angeles Kings that the Blue Jackets acquired as part of the Korpisalo and Gavrikov deal. The Flyers would end up using this draft pick to select defenseman Oliver Bonk, 22nd overall. The conditions on the 2024 second, I believe, are the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to decide if they want to shift it to a 2025 second 2nd by the end of the first round of 2024. I think that's how those conditions work. Now, it's not like Provorov has been completely miserable in Columbus. His offense has actually bounced back a little bit. He's got 20 points in 38 games, but his defensive game just hasn't been there. And throughout a large part of his career, I think Provorov is a guy who's been a little bit overrated by some people. I don't think he's worth the $6.5 million cap hit that he carries, but I think what really just makes this trade not look great for the Columbus Blue Jackets to look back on is, kind of where they're at this season. They went out in the offseason, they spent a lot, the first and second to get Provorov, they gave Damon Severson a big contract, and yet, almost halfway through the season, they don't really look like they're anywhere closer to competing for a playoff spot than they were last season. The Blue Jackets are in a very weird spot right now where they're not fully committed to a rebuild, they're trying to win, and they have big name players on the roster making a lot of money, but they're just not winning. I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what kind of moves the Blue Jackets make over the next year or so, because I feel like if they don't turn this season around, which doesn't look like they're going to, they could be in for some pretty significant changes in the offseason. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those were some offseason additions that I feel like some NHL teams may already be regretting. Again, like I mentioned at the start of the video, I always want to know what you guys are thinking. So if there's any moves that you feel like I missed, let me know which moves those are down below in the comments and why. If you guys did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help out the video a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button and I'll talk to you all again soon.